I'm Allison Roberts, 32, and never thought I'd see my father's true face until that moment in court. When Judge Peterson asked why my dad deserved half of my lottery winnings, Dad launched into his rehearsed speech about family support and paternal guidance. I waited silently, clutching the folder of evidence. When my turn came, I simply said, "Your Honor, my father abandoned us when I was 8, after emptying our bank accounts. Today is the first time I've seen him in 24 years. I'll never forget how the judge paled or how my father's mouth snapped shut, his eyes darting toward the exit. If you've ever had a family member suddenly reappear in your life after they find out you've come into money, I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. This journey through my family's darkest chapter taught me lessons about loyalty and justice I never expected. Subscribe if you want to hear more true stories about family betrayal and the moments when karma finally catches up. Now let me take you back to where it all began. 3 months before that fateful day in court, my life had been completely different. I was working double shifts at Memorial Hospital, splitting my time between the ER and oncology floor. The irony wasn't lost on me that I spent my days caring for cancer patients while watching my own mother battle the disease for the second time. Eleanor Roberts was the strongest woman I knew, never complaining even when the chemo left her too weak to walk to the bathroom without assistance. That Thursday had been particularly brutal. A multi-car pileup had the ER overflowing, and I'd stayed 3 hours past my shift. On my way home, I stopped at Brady's Corner Store for some milk and Eleanor's favorite ginger tea that helped with her nausea. The line was long, and the man ahead of me was buying what seemed like 50 lottery tickets. "You should get one too," he said, noticing my scrubs. Nurses deserve a break. I rarely bought lottery tickets, but something made me hand over my last $5. "Quick pick for Mega Millions, please." I tucked the ticket into my wallet without a second thought and went home to help Mom with her evening medications. It wasn't until 2 days later, while sorting through receipts, that I remembered to check the numbers. I still remember staring at my phone screen, checking the numbers against my ticket once, twice, 7 times. My hands started shaking so badly I dropped my phone. "Mom?" I called out, my voice strangely calm. "I think I need to show you something." Eleanor was having one of her better days and sat at our small kitchen table, working on a crossword puzzle. When I showed her the matching numbers, she adjusted her reading glasses 3 times. "Allie, is this some kind of joke?" she whispered. "I don't think so. I think we just won $7.2 million. What followed was a blur of tears, laughter, and disbelief. We hugged each other, both of us sobbing. For the first time since her cancer came back, I saw real hope in my mother's eyes. "We can get you that experimental treatment in Boston," I said, already mentally allocating the funds. "And no more worry about the mortgage. You can focus on getting better." Eleanor squeezed my hand. "You've taken care of me for so long, Allie. Use this money for your future too." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of lawyers, financial advisors, and paperwork. I opted for the lump sum payment rather than the annuity, knowing Mom's medical needs were immediate. After taxes, we'd have around $4.2 million. I decided to keep news of our windfall quiet, but the local paper ran a small story about an anonymous winner from our area. I should have realized that even this minor publicity would be enough. The calls started about a week after the story ran. Distant cousins I barely remembered, old high school classmates who suddenly wanted to reconnect, and even a few of Mom's former coworkers all reached out with thinly veiled hints about their financial troubles. "Be careful who you tell about this money, Allie," Mom warned one evening. "People change when money's involved." I had no idea how prophetic her words would be until my cell phone rang with an unfamiliar number. The man identified himself as Marcus Wilson, an attorney representing Richard Roberts. It took me a moment to register that he was talking about my father. "Mr. Roberts would like to discuss his paternal entitlement to a portion of your recent financial acquisition," the lawyer said in a clipped tone. I nearly dropped the phone. "Excuse me? Your father feels that as your parent, he is entitled to share in your good fortune. We'd like to discuss this amicably before pursuing legal avenues." The shock quickly gave way to a white-hot anger I hadn't felt in years. My father abandoned us when I was 8 years old. I haven't seen or heard from him in 24 years. Mr. Roberts disputes that characterization of events. "We'll be sending formal correspondence outlining his position. True to his word, a certified letter arrived 3 days later demanding a parental share of family assets amounting to half of my lottery winnings. The letter claimed my father had contributed substantially to my upbringing and was entitled to the fruits of family good fortune. I crumpled the letter and threw it across the room, then broke down sobbing on the kitchen floor. After all these years of silence, after all the birthdays and Christmases and graduations he'd missed, after watching Mom work herself to exhaustion to make up for the money he'd stolen, he had the audacity to demand my lottery winnings. Once I collected myself, I called Catherine Martinez, a family law attorney who came highly recommended for complex cases. Her response after hearing my story was concise and reassuring. "Don't worry, Miss Roberts. Men like your father are counting on shame and family guilt to work in their favor. We'll make sure that doesn't happen." Meeting with Catherine forced me to revisit memories I'd spent decades trying to forget. I sat in her office, surrounded by degrees and family photos, struggling to piece together the fragments of my childhood. "Tell me about your father," Catherine said gently. "Everything you can remember." The early memories were deceptively normal. Richard Roberts worked in sales for a medical supply company. He coached my t-ball team, took me for ice cream on Sundays, and read me bedtime stories with different voices for each character. On the surface, we looked like any other middle-class family in our suburban neighborhood. But there were signs I was too young to recognize: the hushed arguments after I went to bed, Mom's concerned expressions when Dad came home late, the growing collection of past due notices that Mom tried to hide. When I was about 6, things started changing, I told Catherine. Dad lost his job but told Mom it was a mutual decision. He started staying home while Mom picked up extra shifts at the hospital. He'd disappear for hours, sometimes all night. The gambling started small poker games with friends, sports betting. Then it escalated to casino trips that stretched from hours into days. I remembered Mom calling his friends, frantically trying to locate him while maintaining a calm facade for my benefit. The night he left, I was 8, I continued, my voice growing smaller. They thought I was asleep, but I was hiding in the hallway closet. I heard everything. The argument had been explosive. Mom discovered he'd taken out a second mortgage without her knowledge and lost the money at a casino. Then she found credit cards in her name that she never applied for, maxed out with cash advances. "I'm done, Richard," she had screamed, her voice raw. "I've covered for you, made excuses, worked extra shifts to pay your debts. No more." "It's just a rough patch," he'd insisted. "One big win and we'll be set." "There is no big win coming. There never is. You need help." I remembered his cold laugh, so different from the warm chuckles of my bedtime stories. "You've never supported me, Eleanor. Always nagging, always complaining. Get help or get out," she had ultimatumed. He chose out. I watched through the closet slats as he packed a suitcase, promising he'd be back in a few days when she calmed down. While he packed, he took Mom's jewelry box, including her grandmother's pearls. He grabbed the emergency cash from the kitchen canister. He even took my piggy bank, the one I'd been filling for a trip to Disney World. The next morning, Mom discovered all their bank accounts were empty, $32,000 gone, including what remained of her inheritance from my grandmother. He'd been planning his exit for weeks. "He left us with nothing but debt," I told Catherine, wiping away tears. "Mom had to sell our house, and we moved into a tiny apartment. She worked as a nurse during the day, waitressed evenings, and did medical billing on weekends. For the first year, birthday and Christmas cards came with small amounts of cash, $20 or $30. Then those stopped too. We later learned he'd moved to Arizona with a woman from his office. He never called, never wrote again. No child support, no apologies, nothing. Mom never badmouthed him," I said, surprising even myself with the realization. "She just said he was sick, that gambling addiction was a disease. She didn't want me to hate him. But I did hate him. I hated him for the exhaustion on Mom's face. I hated him for the birthdays she spent working double shifts. I hated him for the counseling sessions at school where I tried to understand why I wasn't worth staying for. Aunt Sarah, Mom's sister, helped us when she could. She'd take me for weekends sometimes to give Mom a break. She's the one who told me the truth when I was 12 that Dad had stolen from us, that his leaving wasn't my fault or Mom's, that some people were just selfish. Did you ever try to contact him? Catherine asked. No, I admitted. By the time I was old enough to look for him, I didn't want to. He made his choice. Catherine nodded and made notes. This abandonment and financial abuse will be central to our case. Now, let's talk about how you rebuilt your life without him. I wondered if other people listening had similar experiences with family members who abandoned them only to reappear when money was involved. Sometimes the most painful lessons about family come from those who are supposed to love us most. If your family story resonates with mine so far, leave a comment about how you handled reconnecting with someone who hurt you deeply. The years following Dad's departure were defined by a fierce determination that still surprises me when I look back. By 15, I was working weekends at a local grocery store, handing every paycheck to Mom, who always tried to give half back. Save it for college, she'd insist, but I'd seen the stack of medical bills on the kitchen counter. Mom had developed migraines and high blood pressure in the aftermath of Dad's betrayal, conditions that plagued her for years. Still, she never missed my school events, helping with homework between shifts, and making sure I didn't carry the full weight of our situation. My high school guidance counselor, Mrs. Fowler, became my advocate, helping me apply for every scholarship available. I graduated valedictorian, earning a partial scholarship to the State University's nursing program. It wasn't enough to cover everything, so I worked as a hospital aide 20 hours a week while taking a full course load. You don't have to do this, Mom would say. You could take out loans, enjoy college a little more. But the thought of debt terrified me after seeing what it had done to our family. I was determined to graduate owing nothing to anyone. College is where I met Jessica Wynn, who became the sister I never had. We met in anatomy lab, both of us serious students surrounded by pre-meds more interested in partying than studying. Jessica immediately recognized a kindred spirit in me. You're the only other person who's already read the entire textbook, she said during our first lab. Want to be study partners? Jessica came from a tight-knit Vietnamese family who practically adopted me, including me in holiday celebrations and Sunday dinners. Her father, Dr. Nguyen, would quiz us on medical terminology over pho, while her mother sent me home with containers of food, insisting I was too thin. With their support and Mom's unwavering encouragement, I graduated with honors. The day I pinned on my RN badge for the first time, Mom took her only vacation day of the year to attend the ceremony. Everything changed again when I was 22 and Mom was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. I had just started my first nursing job and was dating Michael, a resident in the same hospital. Without hesitation, I moved back home to care for her through chemotherapy and radiation. Michael initially seemed supportive, bringing dinner to the apartment and covering shifts for me when Mom had bad days. 6 months in, he proposed, and in my emotionally vulnerable state, I accepted. The engagement lasted exactly 2 months, ending the night Mom was rushed to the ER with neutropenic fever. I can't do this, Allison, Michael said in the hospital waiting room. I want a wife, not a caretaker for your mother. The ring went back, and another wall went up around my heart. Jessica held me while I cried, then helped me make a schedule to balance work and Mom's care. Mom fought hard and went into remission when I was 25. For 3 blessed years, life stabilized. I advanced to charge nurse in the ER. We moved to a slightly better apartment, and I even dated occasionally, though never seriously. Trust didn't come easily after Dad's abandonment and Michael's desertion. Then the cancer returned, more aggressive this time, metastatic. Stage 4. The prognosis was guarded at best, and the recommended treatments weren't fully covered by insurance. Once again, I added shifts, this time in oncology where I could learn more about Mom's condition while earning extra money. Our tiny 2-bedroom apartment became a headquarters for cancer battle strategies. The refrigerator door displayed medication schedules instead of takeout menus. The living room transformed into a recovery area with a hospital bed I found secondhand. Jessica came over on her days off to spell me, allowing precious hours of uninterrupted sleep. Through it all, Mom never mentioned Dad, not once. She created new traditions for just the two of us: movie marathons on treatment days, reading the same novel simultaneously so we could discuss it during long hospital waits, elaborate planning for trips we knew she might never take but enjoyed visualizing. We're quite the pair, aren't we, Allie? She'd say during our quiet moments. The Roberts women against the world. "The world doesn't stand a chance," I'd reply, and we'd both pretend not to notice each other's tears. By the time the lottery ticket changed everything, I had already spent over $140,000 on Mom's medical expenses, depleting my savings and retirement accounts. I'd refinanced my car twice. I'd sold the pearl earrings Aunt Sarah gave me for college graduation. I'd picked up so many extra shifts that Jessica joked the hospital should install a cot with my name on it. Not once in all those struggles did it occur to me to search for my father or ask him for help. Not once did he reach out to see if his ex-wife or daughter needed anything. We had built a life without Richard Roberts, brick by painful brick, and it was ours alone. The lottery win meant Mom could get that experimental treatment in Boston. It meant I could take time off to care for her properly. It meant the constant background hum of financial anxiety could finally stop. But as Catherine helped me understand, it also meant facing the past I'd tried so hard to outrun. The certified letter from Marcus Wilson arrived exactly 17 days after the local paper ran the story about an anonymous lottery winner from our county. I remember counting the days later, trying to reconstruct the timeline of my father's opportunism. After my initial breakdown and call to Catherine, I began researching the man who'd abandoned us. Social media made it surprisingly easy. Richard Roberts had a public Facebook profile full of fishing trips, backyard barbecues, and family gatherings his new family. My half-brothers looked like him. Two teenage boys with his eyes and chin, their arms slung casually around our father's shoulders in photos captioned with inside jokes and proud hashtags. Proud Dad. Family first. Blessed beyond measure. Each image was a fresh knife twist. While I worked multiple jobs to keep Mom alive, Richard Roberts was coaching Little League and taking family vacations to the Grand Canyon. While Mom and I ate ramen to afford her medications, he was posting photos of elaborate home-cooked meals and restaurant outings. Catherine hired a private investigator who uncovered the rest. Dad had remarried in Arizona, fathered 2 sons, and worked in pharmaceutical sales until a series of job losses. He'd moved back to our state 5 years ago after his new company relocated him 5 years in the same area without a single attempt to contact us. The PI also discovered a bankruptcy filing from the previous year. Apparently, the gambling addiction had never been conquered. 3 casinos had judgments against him, and his current home was in foreclosure. His second wife, Deborah, had filed for divorce 4 months ago, citing financial infidelity and emotional abandonment. "He's desperate," Catherine said during our strategy meeting. "The timing isn't coincidental." The most shocking discovery came when the PI interviewed a former neighbor from Arizona. According to this source, Richard had told everyone that his first wife and daughter had died in a car accident. "He erased us," I whispered when Catherine shared this information. "He literally pretended we were dead." "People like your father rewrite history to justify their actions," Catherine explained. "It's easier than facing what he did to you and your mother." Marcus Wilson, my father's attorney, called Catherine's office repeatedly, demanding meetings and making settlement offers that started at half my winnings and grudgingly decreased to 30%. "He's fishing," Catherine assured me. "He has no legal claim to your money. Parental entitlement isn't a real legal concept in cases like this." The judge assigned to our case was Walter Peterson, a family court veteran with traditionally conservative views. This concerned Catherine enough that we prepared extensively for his potential biases. "Judge Peterson believes strongly in family obligations," she warned. "We need to emphasize your father's complete abandonment of his parental responsibilities." 2 days before the court date, Marcus Wilson made a final offer: 25% of my winnings in exchange for dropping the case. "Tell him my counteroffer is 0, I said. "I'll see my father in court." That night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror practicing the words I needed to say, trying to find the perfect balance between emotion and composure. I'd waited 24 years for this confrontation. I needed to get it right. Mom was too ill to attend court but insisted on watching via video link from home with Aunt Sarah. "I want to see his face when justice finally catches up with him," she said with uncharacteristic steel in her voice. I didn't sleep that night, haunted by memories and imagined scenarios of seeing my father again. Would he try to hug me? Would he cry crocodile tears? Would he look the same? How would I react when I finally came face to face with the man whose abandonment had shaped my entire life? If you've ever had to confront someone who betrayed your trust after many years, you know the storm of emotions I was feeling. The anxiety, the anger, the strange sense of unfinished business finally coming to a head. Sometimes the hardest part isn't the confrontation itself, but the lead up to it, the weight of all those unspoken words finally about to be released. Let me know in the comments if you've experienced something similar and what helped you get through it. Catherine's office became my second home in the weeks leading up to the hearing. Every evening after work, I'd arrive with dinner for both of us, spreading documents across her conference table while she walked me through potential scenarios. Your father's attorney will try to paint him as a flawed but well-meaning parent, she explained. They'll minimize the abandonment and focus on family ties and second chances. We gathered evidence methodically. Aunt Sarah provided an affidavit describing the aftermath of Dad's departure, the eviction notice, the repossession of our car, the nights Mom cried when she thought no one could hear. My elementary school counselor, now retired, wrote a statement about my emotional state following the abandonment. We found old bank statements showing the accounts being emptied the day before he left. The single birthday card he'd sent the first year after leaving returned, marked not at this address because we'd been forced to move, became critical evidence. I'd kept it all these years in a box of painful mementos, along with the empty piggy bank he'd stolen from. Why did you keep these things? Catherine asked when I brought them in. I traced the faded cartoon puppy on the birthday card. I guess I needed proof that he existed, that I hadn't imagined the good parts before everything fell apart. Mom was initially reluctant to testify, even via video link. This is your money, Allie. You don't need to dredge up ancient history for me. It's not ancient history, Mom, I argued. It's still affecting us, and I need you to help me stop him from hurting us again. She finally agreed, and Catherine prepared her gently through several practice sessions, careful not to tire her unnecessarily. As the court date approached, the nightmares returned, childhood dreams of searching empty houses for my father, calling his name and hearing nothing but echoes. Jessica started staying overnight at our apartment, sleeping on the couch to be there when I woke gasping and disoriented. You're going to destroy him, she assured me over coffee the morning before court. Not because you're vengeful, but because the truth is on your side. My hospital colleagues organized a schedule so someone would always be with Mom during the proceedings. Dr. Lennox, my supervisor, adjusted the rotation to give me 3 days off. Family comes first, he said, squeezing my shoulder. Even when family is the problem. The discovery process was invasive and exhausting. Dad's lawyer demanded complete financial disclosures, medical records for both Mom and me, employment histories, even my college transcripts. Each request felt like another violation, another attempt to control and intimidate. He's fishing for weaknesses, Catherine explained. Standard tactic when you don't have a strong case. The most disturbing discovery came from our PI's final report. My father had consulted 3 different attorneys before finding Marcus Wilson. According to a legal assistant at one of the rejected firms, the other lawyers had refused to take the case, calling it meritless and ethically problematic. He knows he has no legal standing, Catherine said. This is about pressure and intimidation. The night before court, Mom's fever spiked, and I spent hours applying cool compresses to her forehead while Aunt Sarah called the oncologist. By morning, the fever had broken, but Mom was weaker than I'd seen her in weeks. Go, she insisted, her voice barely a whisper. Don't let him win again. I kissed her forehead and handed her care over to Aunt Sarah and Nurse Patty from my floor. Then I put on the conservative navy suit Catherine had suggested, applied minimal makeup to hide my exhaustion, and drove to the courthouse to face my father. 24 years of questions, 24 years of anger and hurt, 24 years of wondering why I hadn't been enough for him to stay. Tomorrow, I would finally get my answers. The county courthouse was smaller than I'd imagined, a 3-story brick building with worn marble steps and security guards who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Jessica met me outside, along with 2 nurses from my unit, Keisha and Ben, all dressed in their Sunday best. Reinforcements, Jessica explained, linking her arm through mine. You didn't think we'd let you face this alone, did you? We were passing through security when I saw him. Richard Roberts stood near the directory board, 24 years older but unmistakable. His hair had thinned and grayed at the temples, and he'd developed a paunch that strained his suit buttons. But his eyes were the same, that peculiar shade of blue that I saw every morning in my mirror. He was with a woman, not the wife from the Facebook photos, but someone younger, maybe late 30s, with expensive highlights and an anxious expression. Marcus Wilson, his attorney, stood nearby reviewing documents. Dad saw me at the same moment I spotted him. His expression shifted rapidly: surprise, assessment, then a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. He took a step toward me, hand extended as if we were business acquaintances at a conference. "Allison," he said, his voice both familiar and foreign, "you look just like your mother." I stared at his outstretched hand until he awkwardly withdrew it. Jessica tightened her grip on my arm, a silent reminder of her support. "Mr. Roberts," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt, "we should go in. I wouldn't want to be late." His smile faltered, replaced by something harder. "I was hoping we could talk privately before." "All communication through counsel," Catherine interrupted, appearing beside me with perfect timing. "Miss Roberts has nothing to say to you outside the courtroom." Courtroom 3B was intimate and worn, with scarred wooden benches and fluorescent lighting that hummed faintly. Only a few spectators occupied the gallery: a bored-looking law student, an elderly couple who seemed to be courthouse regulars, and now my support team sitting directly behind me. Judge Peterson entered promptly at 9, a tall man with silver hair and reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. He reviewed the case file with obvious puzzlement. "This is an unusual petition," he noted, glancing between my father and me. "Mr. Wilson, please clarify the legal basis for your client's claim." Marcus Wilson rose smoothly, buttoning his expensive suit. "Your Honor, this is a case about family obligations and moral entitlement. Mr. and moral entitlement. Roberts is seeking equitable distribution of family assets based on his status as Miss Roberts's father and his contributions to her upbringing." Catherine's objection was immediate. "Your Honor, there is no legal basis for moral entitlement. Mr. Roberts abandoned his daughter at age 8 and has had no contact with her for 24 years. He provided no financial support, no emotional support, nothing that would entitle him to any share of Miss Roberts's lottery winnings." Judge Peterson frowned, studying my father over his glasses. "Mr. Roberts, are you prepared to testify regarding your relationship with your daughter?" My father stood, straightening his tie. "I am, Your Honor." For the next 40 minutes, I listened to a stranger rewrite my history. According to Richard Roberts, he had left due to irreconcilable differences with my mother but had always intended to maintain a relationship with me. He claimed to have sent regular child support payments that my mother must have hidden. He described phone calls I'd never received and birthday presents I'd never opened. "I tried to be part of Allison's life," he said, his voice breaking strategically. "Eleanor made it impossible. She moved without telling me, changed her phone number. I hired private investigators over the years, but she kept them from finding her." I gripped the table so hard my knuckles turned white. Every word was a lie, so blatant I couldn't believe he had the audacity to speak them under oath. "I never stopped thinking about my little girl," he continued, a single perfect tear sliding down his cheek. "When I heard about her good fortune, I saw it as a chance to finally reconnect, to be the father I wasn't allowed to be all those years ago." Marcus Wilson guided him through fabricated memories, taking me fishing when I was 6. It was Aunt Sarah's husband who taught me to fish. Attending my elementary school play, he'd left before I was cast as a tree in the 2nd grade pageant. Teaching me to ride a bike, it was Mom, running alongside me in the parking lot of our apartment complex after working a 12-hour shift. When Wilson finally concluded, Catherine rose for cross-examination with a calm that belied the storm I knew was coming. "Mr. Roberts," she began, "you testified that you sent regular child support payments. Do you have any receipts, canceled checks, or bank statements showing these payments?" Dad shifted uncomfortably. "It was a long time ago. Records get lost." "Indeed they do," Catherine agreed pleasantly. "Fortunately, the county keeps records of all child support payments." "Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence Exhibit A, the complete child support record for Richard Roberts regarding Allison Roberts." She handed documents to the bailiff who passed them to the judge. "As you can see, Your Honor, not a single payment was ever made or even attempted." Dad's face flushed. "I sent money directly to Eleanor. Cash in envelopes." "How convenient. No paper trail," Catherine noted. "Let's move to Exhibit B, the bank records from First National showing accounts jointly held by Richard and Eleanor Roberts being emptied on May 14, $1,999 the day before Mr. Roberts left his family. Judge Peterson studied the records, his expression darkening. $32,000, Catherine continued. Miss Roberts's grandmother's inheritance emptied completely. Would you like to explain that, Mr. Roberts? That was my money too, he protested. Joint accounts. Money you used for gambling debts, correct? Not for supporting your wife and 8-year-old daughter you were abandoning? The cross-examination continued relentlessly. Catherine produced credit card statements showing cash advances taken in my mother's name without her knowledge. She introduced the bankruptcy filing from the previous year, revealing his ongoing gambling addiction. She displayed the foreclosure notice on his current home. Mr. Roberts, isn't it true that your current financial situation is desperate? That your second wife filed for divorce 4 months ago citing financial infidelity similar to what you perpetrated against your first wife? Objection, Marcus Wilson shouted. Relevance? Goes to motive, Your Honor, Catherine replied calmly. Mr. Roberts's sudden interest in reconnecting with his daughter coincides perfectly with both his financial collapse and her lottery win. Judge Peterson overruled the objection, and my father's facade began to crack under the pressure of Catherine's precise questioning. Isn't it true, Mr. Roberts, that you told friends and colleagues in Arizona that your first wife and daughter had died in a car accident? The courtroom fell silent. Dad's mouth opened and closed without sound. I have sworn affidavits from 3 former neighbors and a business associate confirming this, Catherine continued. You erased your daughter's existence when it was convenient, and now you want to claim her as family when there's money involved. It was easier to explain that way, he finally muttered. Easier than admitting you abandoned your family? Easier than acknowledging you stole their savings and left them destitute? My father's attorney tried to object again, but the damage was done. In the gallery, Jessica squeezed my shoulder in silent support. As Catherine systematically dismantled each of my father's claims, his composure crumbled. The polished, contrite father act gave way to flashes of the man I remembered irritable, defensive, quick to blame others. Eleanor was impossible to live with, he snapped after one particularly damning piece of evidence. Always nagging about the gambling, threatening to leave if I didn't stop. She drove me to it. Judge Peterson's eyebrows rose at this outburst. Mr. Roberts, are you saying your wife's objection to your gambling addiction justified abandoning your child and stealing family funds? You don't understand the pressure I was under, Dad insisted. Catherine pressed on. One final exhibit, Your Honor. Text messages between Mr. Roberts and a friend named Thomas Leary, dated the day after the lottery announcement. She passed the printouts forward. The messages were damning in their simplicity. Guess whose kid just hit the jackpot? My ticket to retirement just came through. Thought your kid was dead? Time for a resurrection, my friend. Family is family when there's money to be had. My father slumped in his seat, the performance completely abandoned now. When he glanced back at me, there was no pretense of fatherly love, only calculation and rising anger. His final statement before Catherine concluded was telling, I'm still her father, blood is blood, she owes me. The words hung in the air, revealing the truth behind his lawsuit. Not love, not family connection, not even remorse, just entitlement. Catherine's methodical dismantling of my father's case continued after the lunch recess. The judge had granted us a brief break, during which I huddled in a small conference room with Jessica and my colleagues, trying to process the morning's revelations. He didn't even try to make his lies believable, I said, picking at the sandwich Jessica had forced into my hands. It's like he thought no one would question him. Men like your father rarely face consequences, Catherine explained, reviewing notes for the afternoon session. They expect the world to accept their version of events because it usually does. When court resumed, Catherine presented a timeline of abandonment with clinical precision. Bank records, moving notices, school transfer papers, the paper trail of our upheaval following Dad's departure was meticulously documented. Mr. Roberts, Catherine began when my father returned to the stand. Let's clarify the sequence of events following your departure. You testified earlier that you attempted to maintain contact with your daughter, correct? Dad nodded, his earlier confidence noticeably diminished. Yes, I tried. Yet we have evidence of only one birthday card sent the first year, which was returned because Miss Roberts and her mother had been evicted from their home. Is that correct? I sent more, he insisted without conviction. They must have been lost. How convenient. Catherine's tone remained neutral, but her skepticism was clear. And after that single returned card, you made no further attempts to locate your daughter through school records, mutual friends, or family members? Eleanor's sister hated me. No one would help. Did you ever petition the court for visitation rights? No. Did you contact child support enforcement to establish a payment schedule? No. Did you attend any of Allison's graduations? Elementary school, high school, nursing school? With each denial, Dad seemed to shrink in the witness chair. Catherine shifted tactics. Let's discuss your gambling debts, Mr. Roberts. Your bankruptcy filing last year listed over $300,000 in casino debts. Is that accurate? Dad shifted uncomfortably. Approximately, yes. And 3 different casinos have judgments against you for unpaid markers, correct? Yes. Yet your social media accounts during this period show luxury vacations, a boat purchase, and expensive restaurants. How did you finance these activities while claiming insolvency? Objection, Marcus Wilson interrupted. Mr. Roberts' current financial situation isn't relevant. It speaks directly to motive, Your Honor, Catherine countered. Mr. Roberts only sought contact with his daughter after learning of her lottery win, despite living in the same area for 5 years. Judge Peterson overruled the objection, and Catherine displayed enlarged photos from my father's Facebook page fishing on his boat, vacationing in Cancun, hosting backyard barbecues, all posted within months of his bankruptcy filing. Mr. Roberts, would you describe yourself as financially responsible? The question hung in the air until Dad finally muttered, I've had some difficulties. Difficulties that you attempted to solve by claiming half of your abandoned daughter's lottery winnings rather than addressing your gambling addiction? I didn't, he started, then stopped, color rising in his face. She doesn't need all that money. I'm her father. I gave her life. Did you provide financial support during her life? Did you help with her college tuition? Did you contribute to her mother's medical expenses during 2 bouts with cancer? I didn't know Eleanor was sick, he protested. You didn't know because you chose not to know, Catherine said, her voice finally showing a hint of the contempt I felt. You erased them from your life until money entered the picture. Dad's composure cracked entirely. I didn't think she'd amount to anything anyway. Eleanor was always coddling her, making her soft. What was I supposed to do, stick around for that? Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Marcus Wilson closed his eyes in defeat. Judge Peterson's pen stopped mid-note. No further questions, Your Honor, Catherine said quietly, returning to our table. Marcus Wilson attempted damage control, but my father had revealed his true character. The redirect examination only reinforced the impression of a selfish, opportunistic man grasping at money he had no right to claim. When Wilson finished, Judge Peterson leaned forward. Mr. Roberts, is there anything else you'd like the court to consider? Dad straightened his tie, attempting to regain composure. Just that blood is blood, Your Honor. Family is family. Whatever mistakes I made, I'm still Allison's father. It was the wrong note to end on. Judge Peterson's expression made clear that biology alone wasn't enough to establish the rights my father was claiming. As Dad stepped down from the witness stand, his eyes met mine briefly. There was no remorse there, no recognition of the pain he'd caused, only frustration that his scheme wasn't working as planned. In that moment, I realized I was finally free of the question that had haunted my childhood. Was I somehow responsible for my father leaving? The answer was clearly no. The man before me was incapable of the love and sacrifice that parenthood required. His abandonment had never been about me at all. When Catherine called me to the stand, my legs felt disconnected from my body. I focused on the reassuring faces of Jessica, Keisha, and Ben in the gallery as I walked forward. The bailiff administered the oath, and I sat in the witness chair, adjusting the microphone with trembling fingers. Miss Roberts, Catherine began gently, please tell the court about the night your father left. I took a deep breath and described hiding in the hallway closet, hearing the argument, watching through the slats as Dad packed his bags and our valuables. I remember being confused about why he was taking my piggy bank, I said, my voice small but steady. I'd been saving for Disney World, $1 at a time from tooth fairy money and small chores. The courtroom was silent as I recounted the aftermath, the eviction notice that arrived 2 weeks later, Mom's frantic phone calls to creditors, The move to a one-bedroom apartment where Mom slept on a pull-out couch so I could have the bedroom. Mom worked 3 jobs, I continued. She was a nurse during the day, waitressed evenings, and did medical billing on weekends. I barely saw her sometimes. She'd come home after her waitressing shift around midnight, kiss me goodnight, then sit at the kitchen table doing billing work until 2 or 3 a.m. Catherine guided me through the years following Dad's departure, the financial struggles, the missed school events when Mom couldn't get time off, the counseling sessions to deal with my abandonment issues. "When did you start working, Allison?" Catherine asked. "At 15. The grocery store hired me to bag groceries and collect carts from the parking lot. I worked weekends and summer breaks, gave every paycheck to Mom. Later in high school, I added a second job at the library. I described working through college, the scholarships that covered only part of my tuition, the nights studying between shifts at the hospital where I worked as an aide." "Did your father contribute financially to your education?" Catherine asked. "No, not $1. Did he attend your graduation?" "No." I sent an invitation to his address in Arizona. It came back marked return to sender. Catherine then turned to my mother's health issues. "When was your mother first diagnosed with cancer?" "When I was 22, just after I finished nursing school, stage 2 breast cancer. She needed surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation." "Did your father offer any assistance during this difficult time?" "No. He didn't know because he never bothered to stay in contact." "Did you attempt to contact him when your mother fell ill?" I shook my head. It never even occurred to me. He'd made it clear we didn't matter to him. I detailed the financial sacrifices I'd made during Mom's illness, postponing my master's degree, working extra shifts, depleting my savings and retirement accounts. "To date, how much have you personally spent on your mother's medical care?" Catherine asked. "Over $140,000, I answered. "That doesn't include lost income from reduced hours or career opportunities I couldn't pursue because I needed to be near Mom." When Catherine asked about my lottery plans, I explained my intention to get Mom into an experimental treatment program in Boston that insurance wouldn't cover. "The majority of the money will go towards securing Mom's health care and providing some financial stability after years of living paycheck to paycheck," I said. "I also want to establish a scholarship fund for nursing students from single-parent households." At this point, my father's attorney rose for cross-examination. Marcus Wilson approached cautiously, aware that aggressive questioning of a sympathetic witness could backfire. "Miss Roberts, I understand your anger toward your father, but isn't it possible that your childhood memories are colored by emotion? That perhaps there were attempts at contact you weren't aware of?" "No," I replied firmly. "My mother never hid anything from me. She even kept that one birthday card he sent, hoping someday he'd send more." "Did your mother ever speak negatively about your father to you?" "Never. She said his gambling was an addiction, a disease. She encouraged me to understand rather than hate. Any negative feelings I have come from his actions, not her words." Wilson tried several angles suggesting Mom had blocked communication, implying I was financially motivated to reject reconciliation, even hinting that I was punishing Dad for remarrying. Each attempt fell flat against the simple truth of our abandonment. Frustrated, he made a critical mistake. "Wouldn't your mother want you to forgive your father? To share your good fortune with family?" My voice strengthened. "My mother taught me that family is defined by actions, not blood. The people who stood by us during cancer treatments, who helped with bills when we fell short, who celebrated my graduations and comforted me through breakups, they're my family. My father is just a biological connection who chose to walk away." Wilson had no further questions, but as I rose to return to my seat, my father suddenly spoke up. "You always were ungrateful, just like your mother." The courtroom fell silent. Judge Peterson fixed my father with a stern look. "Mr. Roberts, you will refrain from outbursts or I'll hold you in contempt." Dad ignored the warning. "I gave you life. You'd be nothing without me. You owe me." "Mr. Roberts," Judge Peterson's voice was sharp. I turned to face my father directly for the first time. "You gave me DNA. Mom gave me life, the everyday kind that matters. She gave me love, stability, and strength while working herself to exhaustion. You gave me abandonment issues and financial insecurity." The words I'd rehearsed so carefully flowed now, without notes or preparation. I spent my childhood wondering what I'd done wrong, why I wasn't enough for you to stay. I spent my teens working alongside school to help with bills. I spent my 20s balancing my mother's cancer care with building a career. And through all of it, every late bill, every missed opportunity, every night my mother cried from pain or worry, you were nowhere to be found. My voice remained steady as I delivered the final blow. You already took everything once when I was 8. I've earned every penny of this money while caring for the parent who didn't abandon me. I'm your father, he shouted, rising from his seat despite his attorney's restraining hand. You ungrateful little... Mr. Roberts, that is enough. Judge Peterson's gavel came down hard. One more outburst, and you'll be removed from my courtroom. Dad subsided, breathing heavily, his face flushed with anger. The mask of contrite father had completely slipped, revealing the selfish, entitled man beneath. Judge Peterson turned to me with unexpected gentleness. Miss Roberts, you may step down. The court will take a 15-minute recess before closing arguments. As I returned to my seat, I felt lighter somehow, as if the words I'd carried for 24 years had finally found their proper home. Whatever happened next, I had spoken my truth. When Judge Peterson returned after the recess, the courtroom fell silent. He adjusted his glasses, reviewed his notes one final time, and looked up with an expression I couldn't quite read. Before I hear closing arguments, he began. I want to be clear about something. This court takes family obligations very seriously. Parents have responsibilities to their children, and those responsibilities are both legal and moral in nature. My heart sank a little. Catherine had warned me about Judge Peterson's traditional views on family. I braced myself for a ruling that might force me to give something to my father despite everything. However, the judge continued, those obligations go both ways. A parent who abdicates all responsibility for decades cannot suddenly claim the privileges of parenthood when it becomes financially convenient. He turned his attention directly to my father. Mr. Roberts, I've sat on this bench for 27 years. I've seen contentious divorces, custody battles, and family disputes of every variety, but rarely have I seen a case as opportunistic as yours. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The evidence is overwhelming that you abandoned your wife and daughter, leaving them in financial distress. You provided no child support, no emotional support, and made no attempts at contact beyond a single birthday card. You then created a new life where you literally erased your daughter's existence by claiming she had died. Judge Peterson shuffled through his notes. Most damning are your own words in those text messages, and your outburst in this courtroom. You don't seek reconnection with your daughter, you seek financial gain. This is not a father seeking reconciliation. This is an opportunist seeking a windfall. He looked up, his decision clearly made. I don't need to hear closing arguments. This case is dismissed with prejudice. Mr. Roberts has no legal claim whatsoever to Miss Roberts's lottery winnings or any other assets. The gavel came down with a sense of finality that reverberated through me. 24 years of questions, pain, and uncertainty concluded with a single, decisive bang. Additionally, Judge Peterson added, I'm ordering Mr. Roberts to pay all court costs and Miss Roberts's legal fees. Perhaps that will discourage similar baseless claims in the future. My father's face contorted with rage. He turned to Marcus Wilson, gesturing angrily, but his attorney simply shook his head and began packing his briefcase. As the courtroom began to clear, Catherine squeezed my hand. Congratulations, Allison. It's finally over. But it wasn't quite over yet. As we exited the courtroom, my father pushed through the small crowd to block my path. This isn't over, Allison, he hissed, his face inches from mine. You think a judge's ruling changes anything? I'm still your father. I'll appeal. I'll keep coming after what's mine. Jessica, Keisha, and Ben immediately formed a protective barrier around me. Dad took a step back, surprised by the show of solidarity. These people aren't your family, he spat. Blood is family. I looked at my friends Jessica, who had held me through tears countless times, Keisha, who had covered my shifts during Mom's worst days, Ben, who had brought homemade soup to our apartment during Mom's last round of chemo and felt a surge of clarity. You're wrong, I said calmly. These people are my family because they chose to be, and I chose them in return. That's worth more than DNA any day. Catherine stepped forward, her expression professional but steely. Mr. Roberts, I'll be filing for a restraining order this afternoon. Any further contact with my client will result in legal consequences. I suggest you walk away now. You've had 24 years of practice, after all. Something in her tone must have penetrated because he stepped back, his expression hard. You're just like your mother, he said, as if it were the worst insult he could conjure. Thank you, I replied, meaning it completely. That's the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me. With that, we walked away, leaving Richard Roberts standing alone in the courthouse hallway just as he had left Mom and me all those years ago. Catherine filed the restraining order that same afternoon. When I arrived home, I found Mom anxiously waiting for news, Aunt Sarah beside her. We won, I said, sinking onto the couch beside her, completely. The judge dismissed his case and ordered him to pay all the legal fees. Mom's eyes filled with tears. I'm so proud of you, Allie. You stood up to him in a way I never could. I learned from the best, I said, taking her hand. Everything good in me came from you. In the days that followed, we moved forward with plans for Mom's treatment in Boston. The experimental program offered real hope for her condition, and for the first time in years, we allowed ourselves to plan for a future without the shadow of cancer hanging over us. My father made several attempts to contact me through social media in the following weeks, alternating between angry accusations and tearful pleas for reconciliation. Each message was documented and forwarded to Catherine, who used them to extend the restraining order. Eventually, the messages stopped. My half-brothers sent a single apologetic note, explaining they had no idea of my existence until the court case. They offered to meet someday if I was interested, then respectfully withdrew when I explained I needed time. From social media updates, I learned that Dad had moved back to Arizona after his appeals were denied. 6 months after the court case, Mom's scans came back clear for the first time in years. We celebrated by purchasing a small cottage near a lake, her dream home, where she could watch sunsets over the water. It was modest compared to what I could have afforded, but it was what she wanted, just enough space for us and the people we love, nothing more. With Catherine's help, I established the Eleanor Roberts Nursing Scholarship for students from single-parent households, covering not just tuition but living expenses so recipients could focus on their studies without working multiple jobs as I had done. I still worked at the hospital, though I reduced my hours to spend more time with Mom. The lottery money meant security, not luxury, exactly what we had always needed most. Jessica encouraged me to try therapy to process the reconnection trauma. Initially reluctant, I found that talking through the abandonment issues helped me build healthier relationships, including a promising new one with Dr. Marcus Chen from Boston General, who had been part of Mom's treatment team. Looking back now, I realized the greatest fortune wasn't the lottery win but discovering my own strength. For years, I'd defined myself partly by my father's absence, wondering what was missing in me. The court confrontation helped me understand that nothing was missing. I was whole exactly as I was. Mom put it best one evening as we watched the sunset from her cottage porch. Family is defined by love, not DNA or court orders. The people who stay when it's hard, they're your true family. I think about those words often and the hard-earned wisdom behind them. The money changed our circumstances, but our values remained the same: loyalty to those who show loyalty, gratitude for second chances, and the understanding that true wealth lies in relationships that withstand life's storms. As for my father, I sometimes wonder if he ever recognized what he threw away: not the lottery money, but the chance to know his daughter and the remarkable woman who raised her. Some fortunes can't be measured in dollars, and some losses can never be recovered, no matter how many court cases you file. I'd love to hear your thoughts on family obligations versus chosen family. Have you experienced reconnection with an absent parent or relative who suddenly reappeared? What boundaries did you establish? Your comments help others facing similar situations know they're not alone. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe for more real-life family stories and share with someone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself can be the first step in healing old wounds. Thank you for listening to my journey from abandonment to justice. And remember, sometimes the family we choose is more valuable than the family we're born into.